Hello, hello. Welcome to our Dough Whisperers panel. Like Steve said, I'm Ann Walzak. I write about all things food and drink. Most notably, I'm a restaurant and bar critic for The Infatuation right here in Nashville. And I don't think I have to ask who's a fan of pizza, because I don't think you'd be here if you weren't. So we already have that in common going for us. Today, we're going to be talking about all things pizza and how to make pizza and learn from some experts here. So first we have Michael Hanna. He is a chef right here in Nashville, St. Vito Focacceria. Oh, good. We already have some fans in the audience. Who's been there? Awesome. Very cool. Well, if you haven't been, I suggest you go immediately, and there'll be a booth here tomorrow. Yeah?
Yes.
Serving your pizza?
Yes.
Okay, good, good.
Is this on?
So he does, I think.
Hello, hello.
Make sure the light,
Right.
the light goes on. So yes, fluffy Sicilian style is your jam, and he also serves really unique and creative takes on pasta, as well as other shareable plates for the table. So make sure you order some of those as well when you're in there. Then we have Paulie Gee, the legendary Paulie Gee's Pizza, Brooklyn, New York.
Can't figure out how to turn his mic on.
You make really great pizza. If you went closer, it actually worked. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yep. But you have locations all over the Midwest and Northeast. Yeah, so a whole bunch there, serving classic New York style as well as Sicilian as well. Yep.
Wood-fired.
Wood-fired, yes. And then we have Robert Garvey of Robert's Pizza and Dough Company in Chicago. Yay!
Thank you. Thank you.
More fans of Robert's. I love that. And Robert, you serve pizza, pasta, salad, soup, sandwiches, and a wonderful brunch at your restaurant as well. And you're passionate about dough, and he is passionate about giving back, which we will get into a little bit later. All right, so we're going to get right into it. Let's just talk about pizza as a whole. What is a pizza? Does anybody have any passionate takes on what should go on pizza, or what shouldn't go on pizza, or what makes pizza pizza?
Well, I guess I'll start with that. I mean, I love pizza. I've always loved pizza. As you know, I'm from Chicago. Everything I learned about pizza, I learned in Chicago, but I learned how to eat pizza in New York City. My love for pizza really came as a kid growing up in New York. There was just pizza everywhere. And when I moved to Chicago almost 25, 30 years ago, Chicago pizza was great, but I was surprised not to see pizza on every corner. So basically, I was hungry. So my getting into pizza was all about being hungry and thinking it couldn't be that hard. And it took me about 8 years of obsessive baking. So for me to answer the question really is I kind of see pizza as kind of like the American dream. There isn't one definition. I think pizza is for everybody. You make your own styles, your own tastes. Basically, you can't go wrong as long as you're passionate, put the time in, and love what you're doing.
Great answer. How about Paulie? Any takes on that?
Well, I have a similar story in that growing up in New York, the only pizza that I ever thought about and cared about was New York style pizza, thinking that was basically the only pizza, that there was around. And then in the mid-'90s, I had a pizza epiphany by going to a place in Coney Island called Totono's that was coal-fired, and it set me on a journey to find other coal-fired pizzerias because I liked them so much. And then I started hunting down other pizzerias, and the bottom line is, pizza is good bread with good ingredients, well balanced in terms of the amount and the flavor profile. I like a little sweet and salty combination. And most importantly, since Steve is here, I will mention that you need to have the optimal bite ratio.
Very important.
I mean, I guess for me, it might be a little different. Pizza's nostalgic, for me. And that's what I try to create with ours, and that's what we did when we first started. We made one style of pizza, one pie, one flavor, I grew up kind of like in the Memphis area in eastern Arkansas, and we didn't have like a whole lot of specialty pizza. So I'd go to my grandparents' house. My grandmother would drink boxed wine. My grandfather would have a tequila sunrise, and we'd get Pizza Hut, or we'd get Mazio's Pizza is what it was called, and there's like Pizza Inn. And that was like a huge deal for me. I don't know if I ever really that was like Friday night pizza night was like kind of what I grew up on. That's what I thought about pizza. And then the guy serving pizza down here today, Hog and Hominy out of Memphis, I went to work for them years ago. Ended up becoming a sous chef for them when we first opened up Hog and Hominy. And I got to meet guys like Jeff Michaud and like Mark Vetri and some of those guys that were like really doing amazing pizzas, different kind of styles and stuff. And that was the first time like when that restaurant opened that I was like 24, 25 years old. That's when I like saw that pizza could be something totally different than what came from a delivery box. And from there, it was just kind of, I cooked in a lot of really nice restaurants across the country and here in Nashville too before we opened up St. Vito. And I got to open up Folk here in town with Phil Krajak, and I worked at Waffle too, but like I got to see this aspect of bread that really kind of excited me a lot. And for with that, I think that kind of helped, the idea of St. Vito for me, and like good bread, good topping, like that's kind of what I believe in too. But I think my memories of pizza and like what it is were a little different. Like I didn't grow up in a city that had like this bustling pizza scene. It had to come from somewhere else. Like I knew pizza as one thing, and then I saw artisan pizza, and it was like, oh wow, you can do something different with it. So that's kind of where we're at. Yeah.
Well, good bread is the basis for all good pizza. But I know, Robert, you put a lot into your dough. Can you talk about your process and how you developed that over the years?
So, when I started making pizza, I really knew nothing about making pizza. All I really knew was, as I said, how to eat it. And for me, it was about trial and error. It was just, I literally went through hundreds of recipes. I baked off thousands of pizzas. I improvised, and believe it or not, it took me about 8 years of obsessive baking just for fun. It was strictly a hobby. Then 20 years later, we decided to open a restaurant. So, as I say, it's now a hobby, out of control. But for me, the process of making pizza really was all about trial and error. I went through a lot of recipes. I did a lot of research, but ultimately, it was about not being afraid, making a mess in the kitchen, making a mess in the ovens. And at the end of the day, no matter how bad it was always good, which is the kind of the exciting thing about it. But what I do with the dough essentially is that one thing is really key is everything has to be measured. Like if you're using, not measured, I'm sorry, everything has to be weighed. If you're using measures right now, throw away your cups. First thing I tell people when they're starting to make pizza is go buy a scale, both for yourself and for the dough, because you're going to be eating a lot of pizza. You want to check your weight, but you really need it. You really need it for your ingredients, because by weighing everything, then you have a consistent recipe every time you do it. You know exactly what you do. When I used to use measures, I didn't understand why the dough was always different, like really, really different. And once I started using a scale, there was a real consistency to the development of my dough. So what I like to do, I created a Wild Gee sourdough starter back then, which is now 25 plus years old. But I do a 2 to 3 day cold ferment on all of my dough, which I recommend if you're making pizza at home. You take your dough, you ball it up, you put it in little plastic containers with a little bit of olive oil so it doesn't stick, and refrigerate it for anywhere from 2 to 5 days. And you'll see a different product after 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. And then it's up to you to depend on what flavor you want out of your dough, how much sourdough you want, how much fermentation you want in the dough. But the water has to be measured, the yeast, the salt, the oil, the flour, everything. It's really critical. And as I say, dough takes time. As we say at Roberts, we love dough responsibly, but we are obsessed with our dough.
You use filtered water, yeah?
Oh yes. I think it's the chlorine that you really want to take out of the water. It's really critical and interferes with the yeast and the rise of the dough. So that's the most important thing to get the chlorine out. I always thought it was all about the New York water. New York water is great because it comes from the mountains upstate New York, whereas in Chicago we have a lot of chlorine in the water. So what I used to do when I was baking at home is I would go buy bottled spring water, If you want to eliminate all your problems and not buy a filter, just go get a good, I prefer New England spring water. Use some New England spring water, and you won't have to worry about what water you're using.
That's great. Does anybody here make their own pizza at home? Wow, good amount. Anybody hoping to start? Good, I love that. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about what you serve in your restaurants and what kind of slices you're known for, what makes you passionate about that, and if you have any favorites that you're putting out right now. Start with you, Michael.
Yeah. All right. So we call it sfincione, Sicilian style. It was something. It's something that like Italian American families usually eat it for like sometimes Thanksgiving, New Year's Day, stuff like that. And that's when we opened. We had, or when I started as a pop-up, because I don't know if you guys know this, but like I was cooking here in Nashville. COVID happened. Wasn't doing anything. Had been making some bread and whatnot, just like everybody else during COVID. And I realized that I had something really special. So I'd kind of done some traveling, and I found a type of bread that I fell in love with that was actually a Spanish bread. And I couldn't stop making it at my house, and I couldn't stop making it at the restaurant I was previously at. And one day I was reading a book, and it had this chapter on sfincione, and it caught my eye, and I thought, nobody makes sfincione in Nashville. Let's just start doing it. So I started making it out of the house, and I started giving it away to all my chef friends in town, and it became a hit. And I had kind of gone through like more fine dining restaurants and casual fine dining restaurants and stuff, and COVID was kind of like that time. I remember like reading Danny Meyer's book, Setting the Table, talking about, post New York 9/11 and how fine dining kind of died a little bit, and like people wanted more nostalgic food, wanted more comfort food. And I kind of thought that maybe the tea leaves I were reading was kind of what was going to happen during COVID. And I thought, as someone that was young that always wanted to open their own restaurant, that this was the perfect opportunity for me to kind of jump out there and see if I can't start something of my own. So we had one pizza, and it was what we call the classic Vito at our restaurant, and it's tomato sauce, oregano, pecorino breadcrumb. So we base it off of like the traditional sfincione that you would find in like Palermo, Sicily, on the street usually. It's going to be made with caciocavallo cheese. It's going to have, a tomato sauce with like onions and anchovy, and then it's always going to have pecorino and breadcrumb on top. We kind of Nashville'd ours a bit. We took the anchovy out and the onion, and we just have like this really bright tomato sauce. We stuffed the dough with fontina cheese, big blocks of fontina cheese all in it. And then we don't sauce and bake. We bake and then sauce everything. Because I think what we've kind of figured out after a few years of pop-ups and then a year and a half in a brick and mortar here is that we are doing something not necessarily different in the pizza world. A lot of people know what we're making, but we are different in this city. So we have to keep everything really familiar, and we have to be able to like present ourselves as pizza and have it be familiar for everybody so that everyone can kind of, enjoy it, and then once we gain the trust of everybody, we can kind of like, make a bunch of other different things, but, that's kind of what we do.
Yeah. How about you, Paulie?
Well, I'm very excited because I didn't know that you served sfincione, and we're going to your place tonight. I'm looking very much forward to that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having you guys.
I love good sfincione. Actually, I have a Sicilian slice that's sort of an homage to that. But speaking about what I make, I started out experimenting like Robert did. I did it specifically because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do that, right? That I could open up a restaurant. It wasn't a hobby. And I went from there, and it all came together, fortunately. And after a while, I decided that I didn't want to manage a whole bunch of places, and I decided I was going to help other people open up places. And I went and I formed this, I formed this company, and I helped people do that. But it was very challenging for somebody to do, the pizza that we make, the Neapolitan pizza, does not travel well at all. And I stopped serve it. I stopped doing takeout on it because I wanted that pizza to be enjoyed the way it was meant to be enjoyed, right out of the oven. And when I did that, the other places that I helped open in Chicago, Baltimore, Columbus, Ohio, it was a struggle for them financially because they either had to do that or, it wouldn't work as well. And that's when I decided that I was going to open up a New York-style slice shop because even, where we were in Greenpoint, there was a demand for it. For takeout, and people would say, come on, I just want to take it down to the park. And so that's when I decided to open up a slice shop. And it became a real passion project for me. And again, it's very important. I want to help other people do this. Pizza saved my life, okay? I mean, it saved me from a mediocre life. I'm living my dream right now. And I want to help other people do that. And the best way to do that is give people a model where they could do that. So I created a place that, my pizza, is it the greatest pizza in the world? No. There are plenty of people who are making pizza. If they're using good ingredients like grande cheese and Stanislaus tomatoes, they're gonna be making good pizza as well. But I offered people an experience. I want people to come into a shop and say, oh yeah, I want to have that pizza that I remember from when I was a kid. Or I want to have the pizza that my father had. And that's what we created. You come in, it looks like the 1960s. I serve the pizza that was served back then. I don't do a lot of fancy toppings. The one thing I do that's different than the 60s is our Hellboy, which was Mike's Hot Honey. That became very popular. He started actually in our kitchen. And I carried that over from the wood-fired place to the New York-style place. But other than that, it's just basic pizza. One of my favorite slices there is just a cheese slice. And you look, I have music on from the 60s and 70s, and it's sort of like vinyl, okay? People love vinyl now. Why do people love vinyl? People my age, they want to remember what it was like to go into a record store and feel that album and look at it. And people who are younger, they want to know what that experience was like for people like me. And it was the same thing. And I stayed with, I did a couple of things that we didn't do. If you come to our slice shop now, all our Sicilian slices have sesame seeds on the bottom, and people love that. Not as much as I do. I really love it. And the other thing, my favorite slice, we do a lot of vegan pizza. It started in our wood-fired place, and it was very popular. I knew that in North Brooklyn that was going to be something that was going to be desired. But we carried that over to our slice shop. And actually, my favorite slice of every pizza that we make is something I call the vegan Vidalia. It's like I said, it's like an homage to the sfincione. It's just sauce. We put a little bit of Follow Your Heart vegan parm, and we put on caramelized Vidalia onions. I can't put the anchovies in. That wouldn't be vegan anymore. But it's just a great slice. And I just, again, I'm trying to, offer that experience to people, and I'm looking to create a model where I can help other people open up their own pizzeria. If somebody here hates their job and loves pizza, you should quit your job and do pizza, okay?
If you take nothing else away from this, I hope that's the motto that you go forward with. That's excellent. How about you, Robert? What you got on the menu you love right now?
We do a thin crust artisan style pizza. We do everything from the exotic to your basic cheese pies. Probably my favorite pizza is our classic margarita pizza, which I named after my mom. It's called the Rita. It's got Italian buffalo mozzarella, and then we take what makes it really special besides the fresh basil and the Stanislaus tomatoes is I take a fresh tomato and we slow roast it for 3 or 4 hours, and then we chop it up and put it on the pizza and bake it again. And the tomato flavor in that pizza is really just out of this world. But for me, what's exciting about being in the restaurant business is the creativity. I mean, I love a good pepperoni pizza and I love a good sausage pizza, but I also like sort of more creative toppings. So the way I get inspiration is that when I go out to dinner and I see a dish that I really like, I think that's ossobuco. How do I make that into a pizza?
How can I pizza this?
Right. So I go out and get a lamb vindaloo. How do I do that? We've done a great lamb vindaloo pizza. One of my favorites is Peking duck, and we've done great Peking duck pizzas. So That's where the culinary creativity comes in. But the everyday, I mean, I literally eat a slice of my pizza every day. It's usually the margarita pizza, and I just love it, from the exotic to the simple.
That's awesome. Very good. All right. Well, I want to talk a little bit. One of the pillars of Pizza City Fest is giving back. So I want to make sure that we talk about some of the things that you all do in your restaurants to give back to your community. And I'd love to start with you, Paulie. I know you do a few things.
The sound in this seat, I can hear him a lot better than you, so I need you to repeat that.
Talk about your giving back initiatives.
I have to give a lot of credit to my wife. Okay, Mrs. G has always been very charitable. Not that I wasn't, but we always find ways. I was on the culinary board. I think I still am, of Food Bank for New York. But we now have a very favorite charity called Slice Out Hunger, started by Scott from Scott's Pizza Tours, and we participate in all of the events that he has, and he's doing events all over the country now. If somebody's looking, to find a good charity that helps with food insecurity for people, seek out Slice Out Hunger, and I think that you'd be very happy that you found an organization that's doing good and not spending a lot of money on anything but doing good.
How about you, Robert?
Well, I have to second that. We're also involved with Scott Wiener and Slice Out Hunger, and Scott does an amazing job. He is incredibly dedicated to that. Currently, right now, we're raising funds for Hurricane Helene, and he does a really remarkable job. But also, we're involved in local charities in Chicago, Mercy Home for School Boys and Girls, local Chicago Food Bank, American Cancer Society, etc., and Pause in Chicago. We love giving back. We have a lot of loyal guests, and they always make requests, and I don't think we've ever turned anybody down who would like us to participate in their charity. So being part of the community as a restaurant is critical, because the restaurant business really is about community. So for us, it's just kind of the way we do things. So.
That's great. That's really good. So I want to talk a little bit about, I know a lot of people are interested in making pizza at home, or they already do. Do you guys have any tips for them besides, I know, purchasing a scale and measuring out? Do you have anything you want to add to what you would tell people who are getting into it at home?
Build an oven. I built an oven just to prove that I could do it, and it was a lot of fun. It was very satisfying to do that, and when you're at home you can experiment. You're not gonna lose customers, right? So invite people over. It's a lot of fun. Get them. I used to make homemade limoncello and serve it to them. Get them a little buzzed. Always makes the pizza taste better. Very important. And just do that. And really, I got to get back to this. If you really love doing that, you should open up your own place. I lived a life disappointing people. I was in IT, corporate IT for 30 years, and all I did was disappoint people because I chose a career I wasn't any good at. And now I love entertaining, and now I'm doing it. And I discovered that I was meant to be the boss and not have a boss. And it all started for me using, my pizza oven at home to see if I could set off this career, and now it's basically I'm living my best life. So you guys should get out there and think about that.
I'd say if you can't build an oven, which that would be great, I'd love to build an oven of my own. Don't be afraid of your cast iron pans. That's my trick. Before I started making pizza to sell to all of you, I would make pizza at home and hang out and do all that type of stuff. And what I found was that if I had a really nice, well-seasoned cast iron pan, I could form my dough in that pan. Because the hardest thing about cooking a pizza at home, and I know now we have unis and we have gaznis and we have all that stuff, and those are fantastic products. But before we had all of those things, you could just set it on your back patio and go. You had to kind of buy a baking steel or a stone or something and put it in your oven and get it really hot and then fumble with the dough and try to get it on there. And if you're not good at picking up pizza and like dropping it, you know, like on a floor, like it's kind of hard and you can make a mess. What I found was that if I had a really nice, well-seasoned cast iron pan, I could put my dough in that pan to proof, and I could set that on the counter, and then I could press it along the edges, and I could sauce it and do everything I wanted to, and it would rise in that pan kind of the length, and I would have like this just different style, like really crispy, delicious cast iron pizza. And that was a trick that I found worked really well that I pass on to home cooks all the time. If people are asking me how to make pizza at home, you don't have a uni, you don't have a gosney, you don't want to buy a baking steel or mess with that, like practice with your cast iron pans. They're fantastic. They make great pizza.
That's a great tip. Very good. All right, well, I know in a little bit here we're going to start taking some questions from the audience, but I would like just like quick, maybe some rapid fire answers. Whose pizza besides your own are you really loving right now?
Paulie Gee's in Chicago.
Oh, there you go. Did he pay you? Did he slip you some money?
And no, I love Spaccanapoli. They do a great job. Coal-fired pizza in Chicago is terrific. So there's a lot of great options in Chicago. My Pie does a terrific pie. So.
Paulie?
I just love so much pizza. Really, I do. In New York, there's a new place called Lucia's that does a really great job. But I had a friend. His name was Andrew Bellucci. Okay. And he opened up. He's kind of an interesting guy. If you could go back and Google him and everything, he opened up a pizzeria with somebody, and he made this clam pie that was it was really good. And he was making pizza one night, and he just dropped dead right there in the pizzeria. 59 years old, I think. And, you know, he had a partner there, and it wasn't open for that long, and he had all the recipes there, fortunately. And his partner is making that pizza now, and you have to call and make a reservation for it. But if you like a clam pizza, it's called Andrew Bellucci's Pizzeria. It's close to the Story Queens. If you're ever in New York, I love a good clam pizza. There's a place in everybody talks about New Haven and Frank Pepe's. I like a good clam pie, Frank Pepe's. But there's a place called Zupardi's that makes a killer fresh clam pie. It's $48. They shuck the clams. It was really good. But this pie from Andrew Bellucci's shop just knocked my socks off. I had it actually. He made it. His partner made it in an oven at the Slice Out Hunger event that they had. I guess it was last week or 2 weeks ago. And that right now is my very favorite pizza.
Sounds delicious. What about you, Michael?
I mean, I think Smith & Lint's brewery here in town, yeah, I mean, they do an amazing job. Their pizza is fantastic. I think that's kind of our go-to at our house when we want to get pizza. We definitely order Smith & Lint's. I mean, I've eaten a lot of pizza everywhere. I'm trying to think, like there's a couple places in Portland that are always really good. Obviously, like Chicago. And when I think about Chicago, I think about your spot. I've been to your spot a bunch. And I think about like D'Amato's Bakery and stuff like that. Those are like what I kind of gravitate towards sometimes. But yeah, I think for Nashville, like I think what they're doing at Smith & Lint's is delicious. It's great pizza.
Agreed. It's my favorite besides yours.
Yeah.
Here.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Hi. We're going to take some questions.
We need time for questions. Yes. Okay. So I'll lead it off. Everybody who have questions, just come on up here. For folks at home, they get these gosneys and these uni ovens, and they don't know how to build a pie on a peel. They don't know how to use 00 flour. They don't know how to launch it into a small mouth of an oven. They become glorified paperweights. Give people some advice. How can they make a pizza at home? Could they just get a pizza stone? Should they work with an all-purpose flour or a bread flour? Like, how basic can we go? Because I think that there's this myth that because you have a pizza oven, you can make great pizza at home, and it's very difficult to do that if you're not used to hand stretching. You guys all take it for granted because you do it every day. Maybe give people some advice for how to start this, maybe without a fancy pizza oven. Should they make it in a pan? I want to hear some advice for people at home.
Yeah, I think I can because I started making my pizza at home, right, and like then built it into a restaurant. And I had restaurant experience, and I had some dough experience, but like for me, I think the biggest disconnect maybe from restaurant owner, chef, pizza maker, and then home chef, home cook, and then, you know, aspirations of like building something great is you actually have to like study and understand dough and why it cooks the way it cooks. Like that's the basis right there. Is like if you're just making dough from some random recipe you find and you're not like thinking through the processes of why it's fermenting the way it is, or, you know, why does Robert want to put it in the cold fermentation for a couple days, and like as you're going through those processes, like make multiple batches and cook one on day 1 and cook one on day 2 and cook one on day 3, and like those practice aspects. Think about the science behind why the dough is going to cook the way it does, and then think about the product that you want, right? Like write it all down on paper and think about like, okay, what am I looking for? Am I looking for leoparding? And what gives me leoparding? So if I turn my uni or my gazi on high and I have that big, you know, convection going with the flame going over the top of the dome, like, am I gonna get that leoparding from that? Or if I'm cooking in a pan, do I need that flame that high? Like, it's all those aspects of just like really kind of thinking about the end product of what you're aiming for, you know, having fun with it, but also like if you're serious about making something really great, like stop and like think about the processes. I talk to my cooks about that all the time. That was what I was taught coming up through kitchens. Like stop, think about the processes and write them down, and then think about the science behind why it's doing it. And that's kind of my advice. It's like if you're getting started and you want to make really great pizza, it starts with really great dough. And making really great dough isn't just like, I mean, obviously it's like flour and water, salt, and some sort of yeast aspect, right? But like there's a whole lot more to it than that. You know, our dough process in our restaurant, if you've ever been to our restaurant, you know that we only serve 4 pizzas, and we have like a small plate section or a plate section that the menu's not very big. Well, we want to be creative with our plates. Our pizza takes up so much time, our dough processes take up so much time in our restaurant that it doesn't give us a whole lot of time to put a bunch of other things on the menu. So when you come into our restaurant, you're not going to get everything that you want. Like it's very small, and that's what we do. And one of the reasons why is because our dough process, we went through all those trials and tribulations of learning, you know, messing up doughs and overproofing and timing and temperatures and like what temperature the room is and what my flour is and my filtered water and how hot my water is and cold my water is when we're making dough, and if it's 90% humidity outside, you know, during the middle of July and it's 60, you know, in October or something. Like all of those things kind of matter. I think that's what I think about when I'm starting a project, or if I'm making dough. That's what we stress in our restaurant, and that's what I stress to my bakers and my cooks all the time, is like slow down, think about the process, and really get behind the science. That's my advice.
So for me, I spread all of my dough on wooden peels, and at home, one of the things I recommend besides refrigerating your dough is taking it out several hours before you want to use it. That will make it much easier for you to spread the dough. It won't snap back. It'll be very delicate. And then have all of your ingredients on the table and ready to go. Know what you want to make before you start. And I use just a little bit of flour on the peel. You can use cornmeal, but it does change the flavor, and it has a little bit of crunch to it. If you use cornmeal, your dough will never get stuck to the peel, but it does change the flavor. I only use flour. If you use flour, from the time you put your tomato sauce on the crust, you've got about 3 minutes to finish building your pizza. That's why everything has to be set, and you have to know what you're going to make. And you've got 3 minutes of building that pie, and then it will slide easily off the peel into your oven. One of the tricks is don't pick your peel up too high, keep it real level, and kind of shuffle the pizza off onto the stone. Also preheat the stone for at least 45 minutes. Make it as hot as you can. I have a gas-fired convection oven at home. Always have the convection on. What I did was I tweaked my thermostat a little bit so the oven can actually get to 600, and at 600 you can make a great pizza.
So listening to all of this, I have like 10 things bouncing around in my head. The flour is important. We found if you use fine semolina flour, it doesn't burn. Caputo makes a very expensive one. Forgive me, but you get this like big bag of General Mills. It's the same product just about, and that's good to use. And definitely better than than cornmeal. Also talking about time. When you're making pizza at home, you have a great luxury. The most important ingredient in dough is walk-in space. I wish I had, another even 500 feet to have more walk-in space, because the longer your dough process is, the more forgiving it is. We do the same thing, the cold ferment for 3 days. You don't have to worry as much about the elements, but you need to have the space. Our slice shop, we don't have enough space for that. I wish that, I built it differently now. But when you're at home making pizza, you have that luxury where you can proof your dough for as long as you want, pretty much, unless you're having a party of 200 people or something. So, and the other thing, back to what I said about building an oven, I mean, it's easy now. It's a double-edged sword. You could go out and you get an uni, get a gosney, and it's easy, and it's like, I heard Steve say, it becomes a paperweight. If you go and you actually build an oven, right, you put this effort into it and everything, you're going to work harder to keep going with it when you run into obstacles. So, and commit to people also. Tell people that you're gonna do this, and that kind of locks you into having to do it, right? And talking about committing to people. If you're ever thinking about going beyond, I'm getting back to having your own place, tell somebody really important to you that you're going to do something. The thing that changed my life was going and meeting with Chris Bianco and asking him for advice and encouragement, and he gave me so much advice and encouragement. If I would not have followed through on this and walked away from it, I would have been disappointing him, and I wasn't willing to do that. So.
Good advice. We have another question.
Yes. Can you hear me? So I'm on the mission to serve. I have 2 franchise restaurants, and I'm about to open up my new concept that we're going to give away 100% of our profits. We want to get into an elevated breakfast with pizza. I know nothing about pizza. And so I also want to be able to scale. So my goal is to not have 1, 2, 10, it's hundreds. So to have a quality pizza that is scalable, do you recommend making the dough in-house? And what kind of pizza oven would you recommend that would be scalable with great quality pizza?
I can't answer. Yeah, I can't answer that one. I'm only a year and a half old, and this guy's got multiple. So let's.
I only have one. So.
In terms of scalability, space, so you could put more ovens in. That's.
I wanted one oven.
Because we use a Pizza Master. It's modular, but you can't add to it.
Yeah. The question was also about whether or not you should make the dough in-house, correct? Or where'd you go? Oh, in-house, yes. Yes.
In-house, or what was the?
Source it. Yeah.
I'd make it in-house. I would. That would be me. I mean, I think that kind of sets you separately from everybody else, right? You have your own style. And then maybe I shouldn't answer, but I would say maybe like a slice shop would probably be the quickest way to you can rent small space and you can, maybe produce volume out of there doing a slice shop in like a really busy metro area or neighborhood. That would be my guess. He probably knows a lot more though.
Yeah, I would think you would want to control control the quality of the dough. So in-house, I would definitely be doing it in-house, maybe a commissary style to open up multiple locations.
We got to wrap it up.
Okay.
I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, we have one more question up here, though. This gentleman, do you want to answer real quickly?
Sure. So you talked about using scales to control the chemical side of it, but what about your training? Like, how do you make sure that your pizza's the same every single time in terms of making when you're not making it, when somebody else is?
Quick answer, please.
Training is an everyday process. I'm literally in the kitchen every day. I'm working with my guys and checking on quality control and constantly going through the stretching, the building, the baking. It's just part of the way of running the restaurant.
You have to just keep on telling people what they need to do, because as soon as you're not there, they're not going to do it the right way. And if they get away with it, they think it's okay. I had a guy once say, I needed overtime reports, okay? And he gave me 2 overtime reports, for 2 weeks. And 1 week, he didn't give it to me, and I forgot to tell him I needed the overtime report. And 3 months later, I never saw another overtime report. So you have to constantly go back and reinforce, okay? And here's another thing, and forgive me if somebody doesn't like me saying this. If you have people doing stuff that you don't like, and you have people doing stuff you don't like, and you like them, keep working with them. If you have somebody you don't like who's not doing what you want them to do, fire them, okay? And everybody else will say, I better do what he wants.
Great advice.
Yeah, it's constant. You just have to, it's not like develop a recipe and post it on the whiteboard and then somebody makes it. You have to be on them constantly, all the time, every day.
Consistency.
Great advice, guys. How about a hand for our panel? Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you.